Hello and welcome to the first video that I've done on this channel in quite a long time. Well, I say that a while. First one in a while. And for good reason, just haven't had a lot of interest in really posting a lot of new videos. And to be perfectly honest, when I got a new phone and discovered that Adobe Premiere Rush does not work with it the hard way, then that set me back a little bit. And because of that, then for the time being, if I decide to post something like this, it's probably just going to be something where I'm taking a look at it with little to no editing for the fun of it. And this is no exception. I'm just going to call this a retrospective because it doesn't really fit anywhere else, really. This isn't a proper review, and I don't think it's really old enough to warrant like a throwback episode or anything. If I even continue doing those and don't just make random videos on old blasters that I like these. Or this. This is not old. This is the Busby Mutator. A blaster that has fascinated me for quite a long time, and I don't see a lot of people talk about it. So that's why I'm going to talk about it, because I like it and it's interesting. Is it practical? No, but it's fun. And as every video involving a blaster, to my knowledge, that I've ever made starts out, we'll do an external overview. Up front, there is obviously not an in-strike barrel lug. This is not a Nerf brand blaster, but this muzzle cosmetic piece does extend and retract with quite a bit of force. And it also has a flip-up iron sight sort of grenader thing on the front, which doesn't have anything to correspond with it in the rear, but it's a neat addition. And that can go out and back in. This big chunky piece of black plastic is a foregrip, or it's supposed to be a foregrip. However, I might be throwing off the scale of this blaster, but the ergonomics make this uncomfortable for me to use. It's not like physically causing me pain or anything, but this just feels way too far out. So if you do want to get one of these used for probably a chunk of change, just know that you're probably going to be gripping a magazine, not the foregrip. And for context, I'm 6'4". I'm a giant. If I find it uncomfortable, 99% of you are going to find it uncomfortable. And then there's a 1% that's like, yes, finally, something proportional to me. Well, sort of. Moving just behind that, we have two magazine wells. To get to these, pull that long bolt action back, and whichever magazine is lower is the one that's actually going to drop. There's only one magazine release. With this, I can show the unique mechanism which is inside here. This is the most interesting part of the blaster. So when the barrel goes forward and backward, you switch between the magazines, which is fascinating to me. Is it going to help you a whole lot in a Nerf war? No, because it's really slow to use and kind of fragile. But it's a really interesting mechanic. And back when this was new, this was meant for the sort of long distance versus accuracy sort of argument of why not have both, which doesn't apply a lot to Nerf, but at least he tried Busby. It made a cool blaster, so hey, whatever. Somebody thought of it and decided to put it on store shelves. And that's pretty cool. And you can see there are two magazine wells and they move. And it's an odd kind of fragile mechanism. Obviously the button style magazine release that we're so used to. Back here is the bolt action. It is a very long draw because it's going across two magazines. However, this doesn't equate to something like a massive plunger tube or anything. It's not like a long shot or something. It is still sort of a regular sized plunger tube. And only about the rear half of this pole is actually priming the spring back. And once you have it pulled all the way back, then you push it all the way forward, and then you pull the trigger, and you're ready to fire. And this blaster does not have slam fire, obviously. It'd be logistically awkward to try to slam fire this anyway. Almost forgot to mention attack rail for your super elite sniper scope on your giant sniper that they didn't include, but that's fine. The rest of it's really cool. Down below we have an actual usable grip, which is, that's like unheard of from Busby, but For this large of a blaster, it actually makes a lot of sense. Even though it's bolt action, so you might not use it as much as a regular grip, but it's a welcome addition. Whoever made this, put this grip on all your blasters. They'll be great. At the very back, we have kind of a goofy stock. It's a little bit short in comparison, but in this case, it makes sense. The front of the blaster is just so ergonomically large. You know, it's not the longest blaster in the world, but ergonomically, this is the longest blaster that I've ever held. So this makes sense. If they had a full-length stock on here that was like appropriate for adults, then this foregrip that already feels too far out for, you know, a giant like me would just be so absurdly far out that nobody would be able to use it at all. And it can hook out like that. If you really, really want a long stock, you can probably 3D print a replacement for this, or just modify this with ease. And that's the external overview. Probably took a while, but there's a lot to go over with this. And because this is not really a review, it's just like, hey, look at this cool thing that I have, and maybe you could have too if you really want one. You do occasionally see them on eBay, but they're not the most common thing in the world. So no real firing demo or chrono test or anything. Obviously, you already know my opinion because I decided to take the effort to make a video on this blaster. I like it. I think it's super cool. It took me a while to find one cheap enough that I wanted to bother to get it. But now that I have it, it's a really cool and just super unique blaster. Now, is it practical? Is there a snowflake's chance in hell that I would use this in a Nerf war? No way, Jose. It feels unfinished. It feels like that needed a lot more development than it got. And there are several ways to break this without too much, overbearing use. This grip, it's good. It's adequately sized, especially compared to most of the other just unusable Busby grips, but it's thin. It gets very thin up here. And to have all this weight, I mean, if you really went ham on this, you could break the grip off. Even the stock, this might come off. This does not feel secure, and this barrel, especially pulled out all the way, this is loose and wobbly, and so are the magazine wells. And the flipping mechanism that goes between these doesn't have the right geometry, so if you go to slam a magazine home, you could actually break the mechanism. And this bolt has some weird locks that will lead you to try to break it over a lock. And just a lot of catch points. However, I think it's a really cool blaster. So cool that I wanted to make a video on it. You don't see these really at all anymore, and for good reason. In today's world, it's cool, it's novel, but not exactly useful. And that's what it was back when it was released. And because of that, since then, it's become a relatively hard to find blaster. Also doesn't help that it was only available at Target, and it was released a year later than intended. So probably, it was weird. The whole release around this was weird. But that's why I'm making this unofficial, low-effort style of video anyway, and not all the bum fluff of a actual review or an actual throwback or anything. Anyways, hopefully you enjoyed this. It's a very casual video, and this is probably going to become more common just because I have other things to do, and yeah, relationships to manage and stuff like that. And thus I bid you a good afternoon, evening, or night, depending on where you live.